You may have heard that. So this meeting is being recorded. I hope everyone can hear me just fine. Try and jump in the chat and let me know if you do. I am kind of doing this. I'm not sure if I'm flying solo today or not. So I may not see the chat right away, but be patient with me. And I'm going to check the chat real quick before I get too far in here to make sure everything's okay. The recording box is blocking your slides. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start off with just a few slides, and then I'm going to go into a live demo of the site. I'm going to start with a little background on, someone raised their hand. I don't know what that means. We're going to have question and answers at the end of this demo. So I'll leave time for that, although I do have a fairly hard out at 11 o'clock, or what is noon my time here in Chicago, as I have a doctor's appointment. So we may not be able to get to every question, but we'll do our best. So real quick, the 3R project just concluded last December. The 3R project was a major restructuring and redesign of both RDA Toolkit and the standard itself. It's a project that began in 2017. It looked to improve the site architecture, making it more modular and flexible. It also sought to bring it in alignment with the library reference model from IFLA. This library reference model is kind of the successor to what was FRBR, Functional Requirements for Bibliographic Records, I think it was. Anyway, we also wanted to provide better integration of toolkit content, bring the kind of policy statements and RDA instructions together in a different way, and try and reduce the kind of toggling back and forth that was a hallmark of the original toolkit. We wanted to improve user tools and the overall user experience, and we wanted to bring the toolkit into compliance with web accessibility standards. We rolled out a beta site in 2018. There were 8 releases between 2018 and that final switch over to making the beta site the official RDA site. During that time, we were including gathering input from the community, making enhancements to beta site features, improving its performance, as well as making content updates. And as I said before, the beta site became official in December of 2020. Since that, actually, I'm going to jump into the toolkit now. I don't want to talk about orientation quite yet. So we're going to escape my PowerPoint, and I'm going to open up my browser and head on over to RDA Toolkit. This is, I'm going to get to the front here page here and let me log out of my, you're seeing the, where do I log out? Here, that's where I log out. You're seeing the interface for when I'm logged in to make changes to this site. So this is rdatoolkit.org. You can see it up here. The URL is rdatoolkit.org. The first thing you see here is kind of a intro to the toolkit. It's kind of a welcoming area where we have information about stuff that's going on with the toolkit and with RDA. And I should note the previous slide here. Just last night, we pushed out a new release to RDA Toolkit with some updates. There were no major content updates, some small ones, but you can go to this page, click on here and get more information about what changes were made to the toolkit just yesterday. You also have access here to a new free trial. We have a new free trial page. Actually, that's one of the things we rolled out yesterday was a new free trial page. This is so if you're not familiar with the toolkit, this is a good way to get familiar. Sign up for a 30-day free trial. We have a link to the RDA Steering Committee site. That's the governing body that oversees the maintenance of the standard, and they report on different activities that they've been doing, presentations they've made, and things that they're working on. And you can also join an RDA discussion list here. This is hosted by ALA Connect, so it does require you to set up an account with ALA Connect, but it's totally free, and you won't get bombarded with emails from ALA membership, I promise you. You just need to go into that, in fact, log into ALA Connect one time, set up your account, and then you can just get email updates from the discussion list and don't have to go into that site again. The other important, really important thing here is this that I like to point out is this YouTube channel we have. We collect videos here on how to use different parts of the toolkit. So what I'm going to present to you today is broken out into smaller kind of short videos about how to do certain things in RDA. There's concept videos that Kate James, who does our RDA lab series, has been working on, put together. There's presentations from RSC members and other folks up here. So there's a lot of really good information up here, videos. So I highly recommend you subscribe to that YouTube channel, and we'll try and get new stuff up there as we go. All right, so to access RDA Toolkit, we click right here on Access RDA Toolkit. Now, there are, so this is RDA Toolkit proper. You can see here the URL is now access.rdatoolkit.org. You can bookmark that and go right to the toolkit and avoid the website I just showed you. The blog posts from that website do show up here in the right column of the home page. And then here's your login. Now we support several different types of login. One is IP authentication. So with a subscription, you can send us your IP numbers, your ranges. We'll maintain them in our admin system, and it'll log you right into the toolkit. And that login looks kind of like, this. So this means you're logged into your account, your institution's account. You'll see your institution name right up here. You'll see this login box went from a light blue color like this one to a dark blue color, and it now says profile login. So profiles, I encourage everyone to set up a profile. A profile allows you to set up personal preferences and to place bookmarks and notes in the toolkit. So it's a very useful thing. It also allows you to set up what different things you might want to have displayed or things you might not have, components you may not want displayed. I'll show those to you shortly. And then also, I'll show you how to create a profile. It's really simple. You just need to give it a first name, last name, give your email address, and then you have to pick a username and password. The only requirement here is usernames must be unique, because one of the other things we do now, I'm going to log out and log back in, is we support a single login. You can use, if you establish a profile, you can log in with just using your profile that will log you into both your institution account and your profile. So here's my profile login, Jay Henley, etc., and I hit login. And this makes me fully logged in. I can see files that are pages that I've recently visited. You can see here's my institution name. Here's my name. It says, welcome back, James. I need to update this last toolkit release. I just realized there's one thing I forgot to do with the new July release is change this, that little piece of information. So this is the landing page, and you're in the toolkit now. So again, those are the logins. You can use your regular IP authentication and then log into your profile. When you sign up for an account, you will get an account ID and login, which you can use to, if you're not in the IP range, in your institution that's in that IP range, you can still log into your account. So say if you're working from home or if you're working while traveling, you can still access the toolkit with that user ID, with that account ID and password, or you can use that profile login directly. All you need, if you set up a profile, all you need is that profile login, and you can access the full, all the full features of the toolkit from wherever you are. Okay. So next I'm going to go through these major tabs up here. This is kind of how we've organized this new toolkit. First, around RDA entities. So these entities are not in alphabetical order. They're in what we call LRM, library resources, library resources material. I forgot the name. I've blanked on the name of LRM, even though I just told you what it was. And these are in the order kind of how they're structured within the toolkit. They are not reflecting necessarily hierarchy, although here you have the RDA entity, which is kind of a super entity that few of you will ever use. Just refers to kind of, these are what RDA entities are. Then we have actually the specific entities, the kind of foundational entities of work, expression, manifestation, and item. And then you have the agent entities, which include subgroups, person and collective, or sub-entities, person and collective agent. And then a collective agent can be broken down into corporate body and family. And then we have newer, these newer entities, nomen, place, and time span. I want to be real clear in this webinar that I'm really demoing toolkit features and functionality. I'm not qualified to kind of go into cataloging issues. So when you have questions, just be aware of that. I'm not really in a position to answer cataloging questions. And I know some people are already thinking, what's a nomen? And I'm not going to venture into that, but a lot of that is covered in the material on the YouTube channel. There's a nice video about nomens in there. Okay. Here we have guidance chapters. These guidance chapters go over, these are alphabetical with the exception of introduction to RDA, and then the different topics. So these address specific concepts in RDA and how they're treated in RDA and provide kind of guidelines for understanding them. So you'll see a lot of, when you go through the entities and the sub-elements and the elements associated with the entities, you'll see a lot of cross-references to guidelines, to guidance chapters to help you understand how to apply RDA. Policy statements, I'll show you those a little bit later, but currently we have policy statements from British Library, Library of Congress Program for Cooperative Cataloging, and the Music Library Association with more policy statements on the way. And then finally, we have resources. Resources include the glossary, the vocabulary and coding schemes. I'm going to show you those in a second. Community resources area. This is officially not RDA, community resources. I'll show you that in a little bit. But it contains a lot of information that used to be in the appendices of the original RDA toolkit. So I'll show those to you soon, and you might want to look those over. And finally, we have revision history. We have a link to the original toolkit, which is still up and running, and if you subscribe to RDA, you will have access to the original RDA toolkit as well. That's included. And we have a link to AACR2 just as a reference if folks need to reference that. It's a very bare bones display of AACR2. I'll show you that. Again, you have to use your login to get into AACR2. I think I need to use my account login to get into that. But it's a very bare bones navigation of the AACR2 standard. It does include hot linked cross references. So back to the toolkit. And here's the original toolkit. The original toolkit's also linked up here in the banner, so you should be able to get to it very easily if you need to. The original toolkit also does require you to log in with your either IP authentication or your account ID and login, and then you'll have to do the old double login if you need to get into your profile while here. So here's the old toolkit. I'm not going to go into a demo of the old toolkit, but you can get back to the official toolkit simply by clicking there. I'm going to go back to where we were. So I'm going to dive into, I think I'm going to start diving in with the resources tab real quick to show you the glossary, which is pretty straightforward. Oh, it wants me to log in. Here we go. The glossary is a scrollable glossary. You have a alphabetic browse here on the left. So I'm going to jump down to A. And you can see you have the term or phrase that's being defined, the definition. In cases where you have what's called a relationship element, which this is, you have an inverse. If I scroll down, you'll see there's also C references or use for references. These inverses for relationship elements, which you used to kind of think of as maybe relationship designators, but they have a domain entity and they have a range entity, and they also have an inverse. So this simply shows you, excuse me, this shows you the inverse, and there's a little orange, faint orange underline on these. You can see that you can click on to make that pop up. Okay, and you click on it to make it go away. So you can see that definition real quick. These, of course, are all linked to their element page when appropriate, and you just click on that and go to that element page. And as you scroll down, you'll notice there's a little arrow here on the side that helps you to bounce back up. And then I want to show you the VES next. This is a collection of the controlled vocabularies that are associated with RDA. And these are used in, these are also presented in the relevant elements that you find. Again, with these vocabulary lists, you get the term, you get the IRI associated with it, including the notation, and you get the definition and a scope note where there is one. So here's, you can see there's a scope note offering further explanation of what this term covers. So these two items, glossary and vocabulary encoding schemes, are official RDA content. The community resources is not official RDA content. It is community contributed content. This is a new area called community refinements that you can read here, provide more granular community-based refinements of RDA instructions to support string encoding system, transcription rules, and other string functions. So and I'll just give you an example of what you can expect to find in here. So this has a lot of further instructions for Anglo-American audiences on authorized access point, distribution statement, decision statements, et cetera, like that. And we hope that we can support more communities, not just the Anglo-American community, with these kind of community refinements, but that's something that's still under development. Same with community vocabularies. You can see this covers like abbreviations and terms in specific languages. So I'll show you an example of that. Again, these aren't as fully fleshed out for the terms in other languages as they are in English right now, but we want to support this kind of content for other communities as well. And we're working out the process that we can use to support that kind of activity. Real quick, revision history is the last thing I haven't showed you here. So we just did a release yesterday. You can see here are the notes on the release. You can go here and it'll give you a brief description of what was changed or what modifications were made to the toolkit and to the standard in this release. And then we also have an instruction archive, which is part of every release, where we just capture all the PDFs for each page for those releases. So you can go in here. Actually, let's go to an old release. This was RDA before yesterday is captured here in these PDFs, and you can browse through and find the different element PDFs that existed before. And over here, we give you some links to free online difference checkers. So what you could do is you could download a PDF from here and say the latest version of that same elements PDF. And then you could use one of these tools to compare the two documents and see how they've changed. They'll highlight how they've changed. And we have those PDFs all the way back to every iteration of the beta site releases and now toolkit releases, and then the original last release of the original toolkit. The structure has changed dramatically from this new toolkit to the from the original toolkit to this new toolkit. So doing a difference check between the original toolkit and this is kind of it's a little bit trickier. So a couple of things I want to show you that we did. One of the points I should note is that we have attained web accessibility for this new toolkit, and it's been evaluated and tested to see if it meets compliance with accepted standards for accessibility, which it has. We have a AA rating according to the WCAG. And you can get a full report on accessibility here, including our VPAT report. I wanted to mention that before I dove into the grittier stuff. So let's go to look at entity pages. Let's go to work. So these entity pages include, here's your download for the PDF. Here's a little breadcrumb that we keep as you navigate through the toolkit. You're going to get the definition scope here, first off, and then you're going to get pre-recording instructions. And you'll find this structure repeated on each entity page and a similar structure on each element page. You'll notice we have a few links here. These links work as you might expect. If I click on the link, it'll take me to that point in the toolkit. I'm going to go back. But you'll also notice this little icon. If you click on that icon, it'll give you a preview of what the link is. So you can decide whether you want to go through to the fuller page or just, you can get the information you need right here and then proceed with your work. Next, I want to scroll down to some of these other features. Here is an option. You'll see these gray box marked option. This means this is an optional choice for your institution to make. Sometimes you'll see these yellow condition boxes. This means this is kind of an if-then situation. So this condition is, if this condition exists, you can apply this option. So the option that follows it. Sometimes there might be two options that follow a condition. So you'll see these throughout the toolkit, these condition and option structures. Here's an instance of two options related to a condition. And then I want to, this particular one has a lot of those. Every entity and element file will have a recording section that includes these four recording methods: unstructured description, structured description, identifier, and IRI. So this is supporting a very simple card catalog type approach to cataloging the unstructured description. This is structured description. Identifier refers to a number that's used as identifier, like an ISBN, etc. And of course, IRIs are meant to support a linked data environment. At the end of each entity page, you'll find an elements list. And this is a list of all the elements that are associated with this entity, have the domain, these are all the elements whose domain is this entity. So in this case, it's work. So you can, this is, as you can see, a very long list. You can choose to type ahead on it. So I could kind of try to type ahead to find creator. Here's creator, agent of work. I can also narrow this list by choosing attribute elements. Attribute elements are elements that do not have a range. They are not relationship elements. They are attribute elements. They are just a way to describe, an element used to describe some aspect of that entity. Then we have relationship elements, which are the ones that have a range. And I can go through here and I can choose a range and then limit my choices by that range. Okay, so I could go here to agent and we can come back here. Yeah, and then that limits by range, and you can see here's creator, agent of work. So that we had typed ahead to before. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And then this is your typical element page. It includes definition, scope again. And this is a new feature we've added, is the element reference. This gives you kind of just some metadata about this element. So it gives you, again, the IRI. If you click on this, it'll take you to the RDA registry, which is a freely available site that contains all the basic data about RDA and its structure. So anyone who's doing some development work, creating an AP or some kind of related RDA application can get a lot of really useful information out of the RDA registry. Again, you get the domain, which is work, the range, you get alternate labels, and then we also have some mappings. Here's the mapping with the IFLA LRM, or this is a link to the IFLA LRM standard. Here we have Dublin Core. There's MARC mappings, both authority and bibliographic. Okay. And then here's your pre-recording, and you have your recording methods here as well. So you'll see also that now we have some examples that are showing up. These are new examples, a new type of example we call recording method examples, which display the same piece of information, but as it would be recorded according to that method. So here's your unstructured description. Here's your structured description that cites a VES source. Here's your identifier. which is, again, it cites a VES source and gives you the number identifier, and here's your IRI. We also included some other new examples. This is a relationship example. This is basically to give you a visualization of a linked data expression of this element. So here you have the text version of this example. And then here below, you see it in a linked data expression. Finally, we added context examples, which are meant to kind of pull together a group of related RDA elements and kind of illustrate how they work together. So here you have creator agent of work shown with a bunch of a collection of related elements to kind of give you some context and hopefully give you a better understanding of how you might go about creating the data and the records that you want for your catalog. We also did retain the classic examples, and I'll show you those in a bit, that you're used to seeing in the original RDA toolkit, the basic examples that just illustrate a concept. And you'll usually see those in the pre-recording or recording areas of an element or entity page. And then finally, at the end of each element page is a related elements page with links, etc. So one of the things I want to share, I don't think let me log into my profile real quick here. So I'm going to log out, and then I want to show you a couple other features that aren't found on this page. So let's go to content type. I think that'll be good. You'll see the search function here. When I do a search, I can choose to search all or just RDA only. I can search policy statements, the glossary, contributed documents. I'll go over what those are in just a little bit. Or I can do exact title. So this is a search page results where it kind of divvies up the areas. So here's 10, it's displaying 10 of 130 RDA documents. Here's some policy statement hits, 5 of 21 is displaying, and you can click here to see more. Here's community resources are showing up too. So, and you can filter these pages as you need to refine this display. But one of the nice things is this exact title search. If you know exactly where you want to go, I can put in content type with exact title, and it'll just take me right to that page. So here, you're seeing policy statements from the Library of Congress in the what we call the right rail area here, where you would also see preview links. I want to see, I think this has, yes, this has a vocabulary. So the VES that I showed you earlier also appear here in the recording a structured description area. And again, you can click on these terms and get the pop-up definition and notes here. So should go off there when I click on it. One of the other features we added too was this pop-up menu. So if I highlight any area here, I get a little pop-up menu that allows me to add bookmarks, notes, get a link, or get a citation number. These last two, you do not need to be logged into a profile to access the link and citation number features, but you do have to have a profile to leave bookmarks or notes. Now, a bookmark is simply, I'll add a new bookmark here. I'll call it July test. And I can add it to a folder, so you can kind of put together a set of bookmarks that are useful for you for a specific task or practice that you have, and you can add them to that folder and then use that to navigate through the toolkit. And you can receive notifications. So that's supposed to send you an email. So when you log into the home page at the bottom in your notification area, you'll see if a page that you have a bookmark or note on has changed, had been updated in the most recent release. So you can then check to see if your bookmark or note is still valid. So I'm going to save that. You see it drops a little bookmark right there. I can also do, I'll close that from the X. I'll do a note. A note is basically a bookmark, except you can leave text into it. This is a note, and I'll call this July test 2. And I can set those to private or local. Private means only I can see the note. Local means people within my subscription can see that note. And you also have the same folder and notification features. So I'll go ahead and add that. And that's a note. That's an indicator that's a note. If I mouse over it, it says this is a note. You can see I kept it private. So and then the link and citation numbers are pretty straightforward. Link, just click the link and it gives you a link. So if you need a link to this paragraph, you want to send this paragraph to someone, you just hit copy and then they can, and you can paste that into an email or a document or whatever you have, and you have that link. You can also get a citation number. And, one of the big changes we made with this toolkit is we didn't include instruction numbers for a myriad of reasons. But we know that people still want to have a shorthand, particularly in a print situation or a oral situation that they can reference, that people can go and type in. So we created citation numbers. So if you highlight something, request a citation number, you can get this citation number. And again, you can copy it and paste it into a document. So what happens with this citation number is I can copy that and you can share that with someone and then they can come and just paste that into the toolkit search and it'll take them directly to that reference content. So that's what you referenced and they can see it. So that's our kind of workaround with not having instruction numbers, which were, if we're going to cause us really limit the modularity we could have if we numbered everything. So another important feature we had was bringing all together policy statements and RDA content together so you could see them without having to toggle back and forth. And that's what you're seeing here in the right is the PCC policy statements. And this little drop-down menu here tells me there are two active policy statements on this page. One's LC and the other one's British Library policy statements. So I can switch to that if I want, to British Library policy statements, or I'm going to go back to the LC ones for this demo. So here are the LC policy statements. You can see the top line, they align with the option, the content that they're referring to. So here, this policy statement is referring to this option. And here you can see it's cataloger's judgment. The little dashed line at the bottom tells you that's the end of the policy statement. And that may not seem useful, but I think if we go down here, you're going to see when it does become useful. Oh, no, these are all pretty clean. Okay, I'll show you where that's useful somewhere else. Here, the little LCPCC allows you to go to the full page of just policy statements. So here we're looking just at the LC policy statements for content type. And you can still preview the RDA content that it's referencing here. So in this case, it's an option. And you see the option content. Here's a condition option. And again, you see the option content. Okay. Let me find one more where I know it's a little bit, because one of the issues we've had with this new design is this can get a little cluttered. So let me try a different element type just to demonstrate this. Let's try carrier type. I think that gets kind of messy. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so here you can see this is a larger policy statement that you actually have to scroll. So this tells you this ... lets you know you're seeing the whole thing. And here's a case where we have a lot of policy statements on top of each other. So it's hard to see the whole thing. So what you have to do is send the one that's blocking your view to the back. So I've done that. And again, you can see the ... So this is the end of this policy statement. And even though it's bleeding through, I can see the bottom of this policy statement. But if I send this to the back, I can again see the top of that one. So this is, this is a design thing where we're working on trying to think of ways that might make this a little cleaner and a little more sensible for people. Obviously, also here, if I open a preview of a link, it's getting in the way too. So I can send this to the back to see this more clearly. Send this to the back if it's blocking my view, so I can see that whole preview. So it's a little confusing and elegant, I will admit that, but we're gonna try this for a little while and see if we can come up with ways that are a little more successful user experience. But I ask you to bear with me on that. So there are a couple other things I want to cover real quick. Is this very top bar menu. So here's where you can, well, actually, let's start here. Submit feedback. So if you hopefully are using the toolkit and evaluating it, having experiences, you can click right here and send us some feedback. Use this feedback button to give us ideas about things you think are broken or not working right, or report things that are broken or not working right, or give us ideas about how you think things should be better, both how the toolkit functions, or if you think there's something misguided in the standard that you think needs to be addressed in some way. Use that feedback button. You'll get an automatic response, but you won't necessarily hear directly back from us that we've made this fix. It all gets moved into a big repository where myself and the RSC secretary go through it and kind of prioritize things and respond to what needs to be fixed right away, what's going to be more complicated, what requires debate, et cetera, like that. And so we kind of do a triage on that and then put it into the different files for handling them, but we do read everything. Do not use this button though. If you can't log in, if you're having problems logging in, don't use that button. Use RDA Toolkit at ala.org to email us any access problems you have. All right, so sight language. So we have 2 translations available beyond the English right now. We have Finnish and Norwegian. We also just yesterday introduced a French user interface translation or sight language. So the difference here is I'll change this to French. You can see what's changed now. The user interface is now in French. The RDA content itself is still in English. Okay, but all the navigation, etc., is changing to French. Okay. You'll notice these names haven't changed because this is RDA content, so they have to translate that. It's not part of the user interface. Now, if I went and changed the language of RDA to say Finnish, now it's going to get really confusing for you. This will take just a second. Yeah, so that's a little bit of a troublesome. I don't know why that's showing up as English. I'll have to fix that. But you can see down here, everything's in Finnish. And the user interface should still be in French. Okay, so you can see up here it's in French. You'll notice up here the user interface is saying the language is Finnish because that's the language of RDA you're looking at. I'm going to change the user interface back to English. I can change it to Finnish though and have a full Finnish experience. This is a little bug from our release last night. I'll have to fix that. So I'm going to put these back to English, both the user interface and the RDA language. You can also change the font size here to large if you find everything too small. I'm going to change it back to normal. We have the help section here, gives you kind of overview on different aspects of using the toolkit. We have views. Views is where you go to set your personal settings. If you like, you create what's called a view. I think this is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this. I do want to show you the documents area real quick. This is where users can contribute their own documents. They can create and share documents either globally, which means with everyone in the RDA, all the RDA Toolkit subscribers. They can share them publicly, which means it goes outside the firewall, and people who aren't even subscribed to RDA Toolkit can access it, or you can keep it private or local. You can create a new document here. One of the features, this is basically an HTML editor. It has lots of macros that we added. I know it looks like Word, but it is an HTML editor. You can even switch to see the HTML view of it and do your coding that way. But if you copy and paste a Word document into here, that means that your formatting is not necessarily going to be what you expected, what it looked like in Word. And one of the other important features we added here is that we allow you to have multiple owners of a document. So two people, if you're working on a policy document for your institution, two people can have access to it, 2 or 3 or more, and they can edit it together. One person can only open the document and edit it at a time, but multiple people can have access to that document. One of the other things, oh, here, let me go back to the other feature, is you can subscribe to documents. So if documents are shared locally or shared globally, you should be, why isn't that coming up? All right, well, this is one of the dangers of doing a demo right after a release. Things get broken, so I have to go in and figure out what's going on with that. Why it's not letting me come over here. But basically what it is this is a system that allows you to go and subscribe to other people's workflows. So you can see here, I've subscribed to 9 different documents, not necessarily workflows, but whatever. One's from Valdosta State University. I can also one's from the German consortium. A couple are from ALA. Here's one, RDA University. These allow you to both subscribe to an individual document, or you can choose to subscribe to an institution and all their documents that they share. So if you want to subscribe to everything, say Library of Congress put us up there, you can do that, and those documents will be listed right here for you to access. And then finally, this is where your bookmarks and notes get collected. I don't know, I'm kind of locked up here, it looks like. There we go. Let me try and log in. Okay, let's see, subscribe. See, there's the subscribe page, just real quick. And then I just want to show you bookmarks and notes. This is basically where they go to. You can see here's the July test I created. July test 2 is the note. Here's an example of a folder I created. You can open them to edit them, or you can delete them. Here's how you add a new folder right here. I'm going to jump back to my presentation slides here real quick. So there are a lot of orientation efforts that are underway to educating RDA trainers and RDA users about the new concepts and new practices with RDA after a 3R project has been completed. We ran this RDA lab series. I think it's wrapping up the second iteration of it. I told you about the YouTube channel already. The RDA lab series, they were workshops with kind of exercises that you would do. A book of those exercises is coming out this year, be out this year. There's also a new book by Chris Oliver called Introducing RDA, a guide to the basics after 3R. I highly recommend that. In a couple of weeks, we're doing another free webinar that a couple of library professors put together, at a couple of professors, instructors at University of Toronto on how to teach RDA cataloging after 3R. I highly recommend that. We hope to have a new version of RDA Essentials out in the next year too. And you can also buy the print version of the glossary. We're always looking for new ways to help people get adjusted to the new version of RDA. So any ideas you have on that are always welcome. I also want to make a real quick user note. We are moving RDA Toolkit and its related sites to a new server. That'll happen in August. We hope there will be no interruption to access, but there is always a chance that there will be a minor, hopefully just minor interruption to access. So I just want to make everyone aware of that. And it'll also come with a new administration site interface. So we'll have more information about that and new instructions on how to use the admin system when it's up and running. Okay. Other than that, I have a few minutes for questions. So let me just jump in the chat here and see if there's anything. Is there a free subscription for developing countries? Yeah, well, yes, anyone can sign up for a free trial. Beyond the 30-day free trial, reach out to us at RDA Toolkit at ala.org. You can see it right here, or you can reach out to me directly at jhenley@ala.org. And we're always willing to work with people on flexibility of pricing and access, stuff like that. So please don't let our stated pricing be an obstacle to you exploring RDA and seeing if it's a good fit for your library and your library community. We're always willing to work with people on that. About the condition option boxes. This does not really seem like a real if-then situation. Are all the options optional? If then one selection must be followed. We are not allowed to follow any of the, are we allowed not to follow any of the so-called options? I would say that you are, an option is an option and you can choose not to follow that option. I think that's fairly clear-cut in that sense. These RDA instructions are guidelines, and if you want to follow RDA, you can choose to follow the options that work best for you. I mean, you'll find there are a lot of options. So I think institution and the way this new RDA was created was that there's an expectation that institutions and library communities, cataloging communities like the US or any other country would need to kind of sit down and agree on what they think the right practices are for their community and to use the set of options available in an RDA that best address those needs. What does VES source mean? VES stands for vocabulary encoding scheme. So it's basically a kind of controlled vocabulary. It's a group of terms that are officially recognized with an official meaning by whoever the source creator of the VES is. So we have our own VES that I showed you for RDA. Okay. Are there any other questions? I have a few more minutes. I see Catherine Loomis raised hands. I'm not really going to, I'd rather you just type in your questions to the QA or chat area and I'll answer them that way. I'm kind of on my own here, so I can't really manage a bunch of people. Let me see what else I have, if there's stuff in chat. I'm sorry. Chat. Attendees. Where am I getting this chat? Here it is. So as far as the community resources area and entering your languages, that's a process that the RSC and us are still working on. So that's not something we're quite ready to open up to everyone, but I would look in the next coming months to see more information about that. It's a tricky thing that we're still trying to figure out how best to manage that. Sorry, I'm still trying to kind of get caught up here on the chat. I see some links. Thank you, Linda, for answering that. All right, well, I apologize. I'm not handling the QA very well here. I'm a little short-handed. And so I apologize if I didn't get to your question. If you do have a question you want to answer, I'm happy to answer it. Just reach me at jhenley@ala.org and I will get back to you, I promise. Otherwise, I'm going to stop the recording and say thank you.